Joining us now for more from Washington, D.C. is Hussein Abdul Hussein. He's a research fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. And Ambassador Alan Baker, he's Israel's former ambassador to Canada. He's here in Israel. Ambassador Baker, I want to start with you. We just have some new comments by President Trump, reported in the last hour on Axios. President Trump saying there's practically nothing left to target in Iran, and the war will end soon. Little this and little that. Anytime I want to end, it will end. It's a little quite different message than what we heard earlier from our Israeli defense minister, Israel Katz. What do you make of those comments? Does it sound like President Trump is laying the groundwork to end this conflict or U.S. operations in the quite near future?
Look, I think there's a lot of political positioning here. Israel's doing what it has to do, and Israel's chief of staff and Minister of Defense has made it very clear that Israel has targets, and Israel will exhaust these targets as long as it takes and whatever is needed in order to do so. The coordination between this Israeli position and President Trump obviously has to take place. But I presume that President Trump is talking in one particular direction, political direction, whereas Israel is talking in the direction of strategy and security needs.
Ask you, there's no questioning that the aim of degrading Iran's military and whatever remained of its nuclear facilities, that aim probably has been close to achieved, but of course we have a regime that is unrepentant, we don't really see signs of regime change and no indication it's not going to pursue rebuilding its military and nuclear facilities or sponsoring its regional proxies. If the war were to end at this point or anytime soon, is that a win for Israel and the U.S. or a win for the regime?
Well, Caleb, look,
I'm sorry, I did ask that of Hussein, Ambassador Baker, but I'll come back to you.
Come again, please. I thought the question was for the ambassador.
Yes, I'm saying, Hussein, if the war were to end now with the degradation of Iran's nuclear and whatever is left of its nuclear facilities and military infrastructure, but the regime, an unrepentant regime still in place, is that a win for the U.S. and Israel, or some kind of win for the regime?
Well, it looks to me like it is a win. Certainly, the Iranian regime will spin it as if it was a divine victory. We expect that. But I think we have to wait and see. We have to assess. The regime was on its last leg even before the war. People took to the street. The economy is in shatters. There's no water for the Iranians. Food. Currency's been collapsing for the past 2 years. So even before the war, Iran was in a tough spot. And, add to it that now Khamenei is gone and all the leadership is gone and all of this destruction after this war. I really find it hard for the Iranians to keep standing long after the war.
All right, Ambassador Baker, you can weigh in on that now as well. But I want to ask you also about outside of the military side of the war, we're seeing some dramatic potential shifts geopolitically or diplomatically in the region that Israel perhaps can take advantage of or utilize. And I want you to maybe talk about the potentialities that are being opened by that.
No, I really think that this is opening up a huge potential and a realization in the region where the security and strategic interests lie. And I think that the more Israel and the Gulf states and other states realize that we're all fighting on the same side, then this has a huge potential for whatever will happen afterwards. I would only hope that the Europeans will wake up from their strange naivety and realize that whatever is happening here is happening for their good as well. And it's high time that the French and the British were to wake up and play their part in doing this, because it's quite embarrassing to see the way that they're prevaricating and sitting on the fence and hardly doing anything and hardly saying anything.
All right. Well, Hussein, I don't know if we'll see some really diplomatic shifts in Europe that Ambassador Baker is hoping for. But one capital which does seem to be shifting is Beirut, where we have, I would say, this unprecedented call for direct talks by President Noon. I know you have a strong background in Lebanon. How significant is this? How should Israel, you think, be reacting to this call? You know, there is a lot of skepticism in Jerusalem that it's all talk and no action against Hezbollah.
Well, that's the crux of the issue. The talk is great. The cabinet on March 2nd voted to disband Hezbollah and ban its military activity, which was unprecedented in Lebanon. But unfortunately, a few days after that, the Lebanese armed forces issued a statement that was something else that did not align with the cabinet. So if a cabinet cannot really order its own army to do what it wants, I'm not sure whether, if Israel or anybody else talks to the Lebanese government, that the Lebanese government can deliver whatever it promised to deliver. The government already took 15 months and pretended as if it had disarmed Hezbollah. And all of us knew that was not happening. And all of us saw that Hezbollah was not disarmed, as it reignited the war with Israel. So the problem here is that they're saying all the right things, but they're not doing anything, right or wrong.
Right. I just want to I know you have to leave us soon. I want to just follow up on that comment you made about Iran being on its last legs. I mean, do you feel that the regime has been weakened enough significantly that the space is there now for an internal revolt? Even though we've heard even Iranian officials even today talking, making these threats against the Iranian people if they take to the streets again.
Look, it's really hard to predict what happens after any war. No one saw the collapse of Assad coming. My thinking is that the most probable scenario for post-war Iran would be something that looks like Saddam Hussein in 1991, isolated, bruised, no economy, no ability to fix anything, only internal repression. Now, the question is, can Iran hold through internal repression? We now see the Iranian leadership threatening people as the war is still going. They're saying, if you take to the street, we're going to shoot you, and our fingers are on the triggers. So this tells me that the regime is scared of a popular revolt. Now, whether the popular revolt comes, whether it succeeds, that's something else. But I wouldn't want to be in the shoes of the Iranian regime the minute the war stops.
All right. I want to Hussein, thank you for joining us. Ambassador Baker, stay with us. Hussein, thank you for being with us. Ambassador Baker, I know you want to respond to that point. I also want maybe also to follow up on my question about Lebanon, because the Lebanese president, as I said, has made a public appeal to Israel. How do you think the government should react to it, even if it's skeptical of Lebanon's ability? Ambassador Baker.
Caleb, permit me to be even more skeptical. I was involved in negotiating with Lebanon between 82 and 85, and then I was involved in the negotiations in Washington with the Lebanese peace negotiations with the Lebanese delegation. And we in fact drafted a peace treaty between the two countries. And of course, nothing came of it because the Syrians wouldn't allow it. I've got absolutely no faith in any willingness on the part of the Lebanese government to negotiate with Israel, because as long as they're not capable of reining in Hezbollah, then nothing would come of it. And if they're talking about some type of international involvement, then if they're thinking about the French, then I think this is probably the last thing that Israel can rely on. So I think until Israel does what it needs to do to deal with the threat that has been posed by Hezbollah, and that Hezbollah initiated now, it wasn't Israel that initiated it. I think this has to be done, and I really can't give any credit or faith in any type of gesture or false gesture by the Lebanese government that wants to negotiate with Israel, knowing that it doesn't have the power to restrain Hezbollah.
Well, but I do say you did mention Syria, and there has been a change in that government in Syria. And reports today that Hezbollah even shot a missile in the direction of Syria, the Syrian government making some threatening calls. There's been a lot of skepticism also in Jerusalem over Syria, about its new leader, his real intentions. Are there more openings in Syria, do you see, or do you share those concerns about where Syria may go, the current Syrian leadership?
Well, I think there are huge concerns with respect to that. Also, with respect to the fact that a lot of the weaponry that Hezbollah are using now came through Syria. Since the new Syrian leadership came into power. So I think we have to be very circumspect as to whether we can at all rely on Syria, and therefore we're being very careful and watchful with respect to what's happening and what's emanating or isn't emanating from Syria.
All right. Ambassador Baker, I just want to ask you, you are the former Israeli ambassador to Canada. Don't know how much you're following the news there. There's been a series of incidents and attacks on, for example, synagogues in Toronto, on other citizens, other Jewish institutions, and even individuals in a country like Canada. Everything that took place after October 7th seems to be accelerating for the diaspora, some diaspora Jewish communities. I want to get your reaction to that and your feelings to that. If you were still the ambassador, I mean, what would your comments be there to the Canadian government?
Well, Caleb, you've touched a very sore point, because before I came to the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs, I was Israel's ambassador to Canada. And I must say I'm ashamed today to say that I was Israel's ambassador to Canada, because what's happened in Canada is tragic. The government, the Canadian government has, it went and recognized a non-existent Palestinian state. It's lost all self-respect, the self-respect that it had during previous prime ministers, especially Stephen Harper. And so I really am very sad about what's happening, but even more sad to hear from my friends and colleagues in Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, about the attacks on Jewish communities and synagogues. I think it's scandalous, and the fact that the Canadian police aren't being given orders to prevent this. They're not preventing demonstrations, they're not preventing violence, and the Canadian government is just continuing to hide behind, again, some naive facade as if peace is at hand. It's very embarrassing for me.
Well, I'm sorry that I had to touch a sore point, but I think it was worth it to get that statement out of you, because I think those words needed to be said. Ambassador Alan Baker, thank you for joining us on ILTV.